We are probably going to conclude in this program Captain Stormfield's Visit to Heaven by Mark Twain. And what do they say about us? They say this wilderness is populated with a scattering few 100,000 billions of red angels, with now and then a curiously complected, diseased one. You see, they think we whites and the occasional black are Injuns that have been bleached out or blackened by some leprous disease or other, or some peculiarly rascally sin, mind you. Now, I was raised in a church that had that sort of belief about non-whites, but, and they weren't the only ones. Well, I mean, they did back in the day, not when I was alive, but yeah. Well, they believe that's why they were that way in the first place, but the curse was supposedly lifted in the 60s or something. It is a mighty sour pill for us all, my friend, even the modestest of us, let alone the other kind, that think they are going to be received like a long-lost government bond, and hug Abraham into the bargain. I haven't asked you any of the particulars, Captain. May I judge it goes without saying, if my experience is worth anything, that there wasn't much of a hurrah made over you when you arrived. Now was there? Don't mention it, Sandy, says I, coloring up a little. I wouldn't have had the family to see it for any moment. You are a mind to name. Change subject, Sandy. Change the subject. Well, do you think of settling in the California Department of Bliss? I don't know. I wasn't calculating on doing anything really definite in that direction till the family come. I thought I would just look around meantime in a quiet way and make up my mind. Besides, I know a good many dead people, and I was calculating to hunt them up and swap a little gossip with them about friends and old times, and one thing or another, and ask them how they like it here, as far as they have got. I reckon my wife will want to camp in the California range, though, because most of her departed will be there, and she likes to be with folks she knows. Don't you let her? You see what the Jersey district of heaven is like for whites? Well, the California district is 1,000 times worse. It swarms with a mean kind of leather-headed, mud-colored angels, and your nearest white neighbors is likely to be 1,000,000 miles away. So what, in heaven it's racist? Well, this is written in the 1800s, but what a man mostly misses in heaven is company of his own sort and color and language. I have come near settling in the European part of heaven once or twice on that account. Well, why didn't you, Sandy? Oh, various reasons. For one thing, although you see plenty of whites there, you can't understand any of them hardly, and so you go about as hungry for talk as you do here. I like to look at a Russian or a German or an Italian. I even like to look at a Frenchman, if I have the luck to catch him engaged in anything that ain't indelicate. But looking don't cure the hunger. What you want is talk. Well, there's England, Sandy, the English district of heaven. Yes, but it is not so very much better than this end of the heavenly domain. As long as you run across Englishmen born this side of 300 years ago, you are all right. But the minute you get back off Elizabeth's time, the language begins to fog up, and the further back you go, the foggier it gets. I had some talk with one Langland and a man by the name of Chaucer, old-time poets, but it was no use. I couldn't quite understand them, and they couldn't quite understand me. I have had letters from them since, but it is such broken English, I can't make it out. Back of those men's time, the English are just simple foreigners, nothing more, nothing less. They talk Danish, German, Norman, French, and sometimes a mixture of all three. Back of them, they talk Latin, and ancient British, and Irish, and Gaelic. So is Irish Gaelic? Because I know one of the Scottish and Irish, one of them speak Gaelic and one of them speak Gaelic, and they're very, very similar, but probably more similar than French and English. I mean, definitely similar, more similar than French and English. And then, back of these come billions and billions of pure savages that talk a gibberish that Satan himself couldn't understand. The fact is, where you strike one man in the English settlements that you can understand, you wade through awful swarms that talk of something you can't make head nor tail of. You see, every country on earth has been overlaid so often in the course of a billion years with different kinds of people and different sorts of languages that this sort of mongrel business was bound to be the result in heaven. Well, again, they're limiting their own pettiness over there. It's like, you'd think the variety could work, and then you could, that there wouldn't be the language barriers and the problems of this world. But Sandy, says I, did you see a good many of the great people history tells about? Yes, plenty. I saw kings and all sorts of distinguished people. Do the kings rank just as they did below? No. A body can't bring his rank up here with him. Divine right is a good enough earthly romance, but it doesn't go here. Kings drop down to the general level as soon as they reach the realms of grace. I knew Charles II very well, one of the most popular comedians in the English section. Draws first rate. There are better, of course, people that were never heard of on earth, but Charles is making a very good reputation indeed, and is considered a rising man. Richard the Lion-Hearted is in the prize ring, and coming into considerable favor. Henry the English is a tragedian, and the scenes where he kills people are done to the very life. Henry the Sixth keeps a religious bookstand. Did you ever see Napoleon, Sandy? Often, sometimes in the Corsican range, sometimes in the French. He always hunts up a conspicuous place and goes frowning around with his arms folded and his field glass under his arm, looking as grand, gloomy, and peculiar as his reputation calls for, and very much bothered because he don't stand as high here for a soldier as he expected to. Why, who stands higher? Oh, a lot of people we never heard of before. The shoemaker and horse doctor and knife grinder kind, clodhoppers from goodness knows where, that never handled a sword or fired a shot in their lives, but the soldiership was in them, though they never had a chance to show it. But here they take their right place, and Caesar and Napoleon and Alexander have to take a back seat. The greatest military genius our world ever produced was a bricklayer from somewhere back of Boston, died during the Revolution by the name of Absalom Jones. Wherever he goes, crowds flock to see him. You see, everybody knows that if he had a chance, he would have shown the world some generalship that would have made all generalship before look like child's play and prentice work. But he never got a chance. He tried heaps of times to enlist as a private, but he had lost both thumbs and a couple of front teeth, and the recruiting sergeant wouldn't pass him. However, as I say, everybody knows now what he would have been, and so they flock by the millions to get a glimpse of him whenever they hear he is going to be anywhere. Caesar and Hannibal and Alexander and Napoleon are all on his staff. Well, which Caesar, and ever so many more great generals. But the public hardly care to look at them when he is around. Boom. There goes another salute. The barkeeper's off quarantine now. Sandy and I put our things, when we made a wish, and in a second we were at the reception place. We stood on the edge of the ocean of space and looked out over the dimness, but couldn't make out anything. Close by us was the grandstand, tier on tier of dim thrones rising up towards the zenith. From each side of it spread away the tiers of seats for the general public. They spread away for leagues and leagues. You couldn't see the ends. They were empty and still and hadn't a cheerful look, but looked dreary like a theater before anybody comes, gas turned down, Sandy says. We'll sit down here and wait. We'll see the head of the procession come in sight away yonder pretty soon. Now, says I, it's pretty lonesome, Sandy. I reckon there's a hitch somewheres. Nobody but just you and me. It ain't much of a display for the barkeeper. Don't you fret. It's all right. There'll be one more gunfire, then you'll see. In a little while, we noticed a sort of a lightish flush away off on the horizon. Head of the torchlight, procession, says Sandy. It spread and got lighter and brighter. Soon it had a strong glare like a locomotive headlight. It kept on getting brighter and brighter till it was like the sun peeping above the horizon line at the sea. The big red rays shot high up into the sky. Keep your eyes on the grandstand and keep the miles of seats sharp, says Sandy, and listen for the gunfire. Just then it burst out, boom, 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 like a million thunderstorms in one, and made the whole heavens rock. Then there was a sudden and awful glare of light all about us. In that very instant, every one of the millions of seats was occupied, and as far as you could see in both directions was just a solid pack of people, and the place was all splendidly lit up. It was enough to take a body's breath away, Sandy says. That is the way we do it here. No time pulled away, nobody straggling, and after the curtain's up, wishing is quicker than traveling. A quarter of a second ago, these folks were millions of miles from here. When they heard the last signal, all they had to do was to wish, and here they are. The prodigious choir struck up. We long to hear thy voice, to see thee face to face. It was the noble music, but the uneducated chipped in and spoiled it, just as the congregations used to do on earth. The head of the procession began to pass now, and it was a wonderful sight. It swept along, thick and solid, 500,000 angels abreast, and every angel carrying a torch and singing. The whirring thunder of the winds made a body's head ache. You could follow the line of the procession back, and slanting upwards into the sky, far away in a glittering, snaky rope, till it was only a faint streak in the distance. The rush went on and on for a long time, and at last, sure enough, along comes the barkeeper, and then everybody rose, and a cheer went up that made the heavens shake. I tell you, he was all smiles and had his halo tilted over one ear in a cocky way, and was the most satisfied-looking saint I ever saw. While he marched up the steps of the grandstand, the choir struck up. The whole wide heaven groans and waits to hear that voice. There were 4 gorgeous tents standing side by side in the place of honor, on a broad-railed platform in the center of the grandstand, with a shining guard of honor about them. The tents had been shut up all this time. As the barkeeper climbed along up, bowing and smiling to everybody, and at last got to the platform, these tents were jerked up aloft all of a sudden, and we saw 4 noble thrones of gold, all caked with jewels, and in 2 middle ones sat old white-whiskered men, and in the 2 others a couple of the most glorious and gaudy giants, with platter halos and beautiful armor. All the millions went down on their knees and stared and looked glad, and burst out into a joyful kind of murmurs. They said, 2 archangels. That is splendid. Who can the others be? The archangels gave the barkeeper a stiff little military bow. The 2 old men rose. One of them said, Moses and Esau welcome thee. And then all the 4 vanished, and the thrones were empty. The barkeeper looked a little disappointed, for he was calculating to hug those old people, I judge. But it was the gladdest and proudest multitude you ever saw, because they had seen Moses and Esau. Everybody was saying, did you see them? I did. Esau's side face was to me, but I saw Moses full in the minute, just as plain as I see you this minute. The procession took up the barkeeper and moved on with him again, and the crowd broke up and scattered as we went along home. Sandy said it was a great success, and the barkeeper would have a right to be proud of it forever. And he said we were in luck too. Said we might attend receptions for 40,000 years to come and not have a chance to see a brace of such grand moguls as Moses and Esau. We found afterwards that we had come near seeing another patriarch, and likewise a genuine prophet besides, but at that last moment they sent regrets. Sandy said there would be a monument put up there where Moses and Esau had stood, with the date and circumstances and all about the whole business, and travelers would come for thousands of years to gawk at it and climb over it and scribble their names upon it. Now, of course, the prejudiced, pride, whatever, there's reasons why a purgatory period or something, either in the grave or otherwise, would do good for a paradise, because the paradise hereafter is going to have the same problems here, except, it's going to be better. And probably not have the lowest, but yeah, the idea everybody's going to have to, you're not going to have problems with people being, of a different language than you and all that other stuff. Even in the psychedelic worlds, that's not the case. And certainly the spiritual visions of this life, there can be things that happened with language. Of course, you don't always remember them when you come back, what everything means, but